The James Show Podcast.
Listen, don't turn the station, all right? I'm having State Rep Brian Harrison back on from Midlothian. He's been my worst guest of 2025. I don't think it's going to be any better today, but just stick with me for the next 2 minutes. I know it's disgusting, but it's information we all need to know. So welcome back, Brian. Jokes aside, thanks for coming on again.
You know, James Parker, even though you do not like talking with me, you know what? I love being with you. I love talking with you. And everybody out there driving around, listen to WBAP, I love being on the Parker Show, even though you introduce me every time with such, negativity and sourness in your voice. But
you earn it, though. Brian, when have you ever come on the James Show and had good news?
Well, you've got me there, and I wish I could. You would think that in a Republican-dominated state like Texas, we would have lots of great conservative victories for liberty that I could come on every day, every hour, and report. I mean, President Trump is, doing new announcements all the time about great things he's doing. You would think that Texas would be at least as bold. We don't have to deal with, the swamp of D.C., but unfortunately, no. The swamp in Austin, as it turns out, is every bit as bad, unfortunately.
Well, let's talk about the news. I guess if there's anything positive we could say about the work that's been done lately as well, the maps passed, finally.
Yeah, it did. I credit the grassroots. I credit the people, the hardworking, overtaxed, patriotic men and women of the state of Texas and across the country, quite frankly, who rose up and said, guys, what are you doing? Democrat state after Democrat state has been, redrawing their maps and giving them big advantage, gerrymandering Republicans out of having voices and representation in Congress. What is going on in Texas? Get with the program. I mean, President Trump himself had to speak up and pressure the rhinos and Democrats that control Austin to get with the program. So thanks to President Trump and grassroots millions of Texans demanding action, the James Parker Show, listeners to the James Parker Show, I know you guys were blowing up phone lines down here and social media. We got something done. I mean, we got a new map done finally after the Democrats had 3 months of their drama, coupled with the House rhino drama, pretending to punish them. Still, nobody, by the way, has been punished in any way, shape, or form. They still have their parking spots. Not one fine that they'll ever pay. Nothing's happened to them, but we did get the map done, and that is good. Now, it's not the boldest map. I think we could have and should have added 2 more Republican seats. We added 5. We should have had one. We should have added 1 more for every week the Democrats were gone. That's what we should have done. So look, we got it done. We should have had 2 more. I'll keep pushing for that. I'll keep saying we should have 2 more. But the big thing we got to do right now that's Texas-focused is we've got to pivot to the biggest failure of many failures, but the biggest failure of last session was property taxes. Texans are sick and tired of being taxed out of their homes, especially, by the way, to fund liberal Hollywood and DEI and all this nonsense. But we've got to get property taxes under control. We need to start eliminating property taxes, and so I am going to be like a dog with a bone on that. And if we don't get our state on a path to eliminating property taxes, and that starts with, by the way, it should have a massive cut immediately. Like right now, today, we should be cutting people's property taxes 40% or more right now before this session goes home. And then what I keep proposing is I want property taxes to actually be deemed unconstitutional so that they will be finally ended in the state of Texas, because no Texan can ever own their home, and never-ending property taxes are just unethical, immoral, and they need to be thrown on the dustbin of history.
Round of applause for that one there. We're talking with State Rep Brian Harrison, who's based out of Midlothian and a couple surrounding communities there. So, Brian, the one thing I don't like about the maps being passed is the fact that there's no negative consequences that are visited upon those who fled the state. And now I did see, in a positive sign here, a headline that said Governor Abbott has expanded the legislative agenda for this next special session. So maybe we can have a bill that would punish lawmakers who leave the state. But if we don't do that, then doesn't that mean this was all a show and probably coordinated?
Well, it was a show, and it was coordinated, and I mean, I can prove it. I mean, Gene Wu, the head of the Democrats, held a press conference the first morning of the special session where he told the world that he was going to do everything he could to thwart the Republican agenda, including breaking quorum, and then our liberal speaker put him on the redistricting committee 30 minutes later. This was 100% coordinated, and by the way, the other piece of proof for that is on July 30th, Wednesday, go back in time a little bit, we had the Democrats here, we had the maps, we had a quorum. And you just watched him put on this theater for the last 3 days about, DPS monitoring, and we're going to maintain the quorum. Well, he just proved my point that if you can maintain a quorum, why the hell didn't you maintain the quorum when we had the Democrats in the House floor 3 weeks ago or 3.5 weeks ago. So this is all bad theater from the Democrats, total hypocrites. They love gerrymandering. They love redistricting, just not when Republican states do it. And total drama from the Republicans that actually assisted the Democrats. And look no further than the fact that not one Democrat has had any punishment of any kind meted out to them. Not one fine, not one parking spot. And don't you remember 3 weeks ago, the Governor Abbott said if they're not at work on 3 o'clock, we're going to vacate their seats. Dustin Burrows signed arrest warrants.
Yep.
Yeah, 0 arrests.
Yep, 0.
Not one seat vacated.
0 arrests.
Yeah.
Super disappointing. All right, Brian Harrison, are they going to outlaw THC? Like, what do you think's actually going to get done between now and the end of the special session?
Well, one thing that will get done is some fake punishments. Prepare yourself to see a lot of fake punishments. They'll pull Democrats off committees that aren't going to meet anymore. They'll take their vice chairmanships away. But that's like throwing a hockey player, in the penalty box after the game's over. Like, okay, they don't have committee responsibilities,
right,
but the committees are done. So you'll see probably some fake theater on fake punishments. But then we've got to deal with property taxes. That's my number one thing. Get rid of property taxes. Get rid of property taxes. Get rid of property taxes. A distant nanny state bills like this ridiculous hemp ban that our lieutenant governor in the Texas Senate will not stop pushing. This is progressive big government nanny statism that is going to threaten 50-something thousand jobs. It's going to force millions of Texans to make an awful choice to either go to black market, totally dangerous, unregulated, or to highly addictive, deadly pharmaceuticals. Well, why would we do this? So no, the priorities, and I'll tell you why. The priorities of the Texas government are not the priorities of the Texas people. The Texas people want their government to secure the border and lower their taxes, get regulations out of their life, keep costs down, make them protect their freedom, protect their liberty, and then get the hell away and let them live their lives, raise their family, be with their kids, and that's what they want. And instead, we've got a government down here in Austin that is basically trying to copy some of the worst parts of blue states like California. We got more regulations in some ways already than California does. We got the worst property taxes. We're the top 4 or 5 in the whole country. Texas should be the number 1 state in America for liberty. We're not. But yeah, they're gonna try and push this ridiculous nanny state hemp ban again, and I will do everything I can to stop it.
All right, well, thanks for all the terrible news again. Go back out there and give them help. This is State Rep Brian Harrison, Republican from Midlothian.
You got to fight for Texas, buddy, and I appreciate you and your audience so much, my friend.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you soon. We have a fake scandal here. AI is fun, but believe me, I've been using it a lot. It's a trip, especially if you're a creative type, just to see what you can think up and make. But there seems to be a concern about this that is way overblown. Now, deep fakes are going to be a problem in future elections. There's going to be some people that are fooled by videos that look like they're real, and they have somebody saying something that they didn't say, and it's going to be made in a bad faith effort. And I mean that, like, not for funds, not for comedy, but to have an effect on the voting electorate. We're watching out for that. We'll keep track of that. We'll adapt accordingly. But if you're in a position of government, if you're one of the puppet masters, you want to get as much power and control over this as possible, so you need to scare people about this as much as possible. Now, this is one that just doesn't fit the bill. Amy Klobuchar, senator from, Maryland? There was a viral video that went around of her, and it's AI, and her mouth is moving, and it definitely sounds like her. We're getting better with this. It's not so garbledy or auto-tune sounding. But you can tell it's AI by what she's saying. Her response to the Sydney Sweeney ad, she uses the ugly word for tatas. That's one of the things that's bleeped out here. And I bleeped out the B word. And just no one thought for half a second that this was real. This is just comedy. This isn't trying to defraud anyone. I don't think anyone made this with the intent of, hey, maybe some people will think this is real and it'll hurt her politically. No one thought that. When you go on a crusade after jokes, that's when you look like a fool. But she's out there doing interviews and being the victim. This could happen to anybody. And this is why we have to have regulations and controls. And this is going to be a huge problem going forward. And the future's scary because there's going to be people who are fooled by such things. And shut up. Listen to this. You think anyone thought this was real?
Look, all we're saying is that we want representation, okay? If Republicans are going to have beautiful girls with perfect in their ads, we want ads for Democrats too, you know? We want ugly, fat wearing pink wigs and long-ass fake nails being loud and twerking on top of a cop car at a Waffle House because they didn't get extra ketchup, you know? Just because we're the party of ugly people doesn't mean we can't be featured in ads, okay? And I know most of us are too fat to wear jeans or too ugly to go outside, but we want representation.
God, okay, whoever made that, first off, hilarious. Because while they said a bunch of funny things and they said, oh, he said some dirty words, it was actually making a pretty good point. It was that there was a kernel of truth, which is the basis of any good humor. But do you think, I'm sure in a nation of 340 million people, we can find some mouth breather over there that thinks that that's real. But if 99.9% of us recognize an AI, is it really a concern? Is it really a cause for more power and control and regulation to be put in the hands of people like Amy Klobuchar? You know, maybe you should learn from this, because from some people, what you can learn from Amy Klobuchar and people who are on Team Blue, what you can learn from this is the perception of your party. This is the perception of the party that you have built up. This is funny because you are the party of people with pink hair doing obscene things in public. You are the party of someone twerking on a cop car at a Waffle House. You are the party of all the things that were described by the AI version of Amy Klobuchar. And look, y'all have some rebuilding to do. Y'all are in a rebuilding year, Team Blue. This isn't how you win back young people, by taking things that are obviously funny and then pretending to be upset about it, because you know she's not really upset about it. So, oh, whoa, victim is me. You know what? You're not going to win. You're not going to win young people like that by taking jokes and making them all serious. You win young people by making the jokes. That's why you're losing. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Did anyone think that was real for 5 seconds? My next guest is the great Chris Putnam from Dallas Express. And Dallas Express, if you're not already familiar with it, this should take the place that used to be held in your information gathering campaign by the Dallas Morning News or Fort Worth Star-Telegram or all these other, legacy old school newspapers that have fallen by the wayside. This is the one that's risen up and taken its place, DallasExpress.com. Chris Putnam, first off, you are Mr. Tarrant County, and we had the breaking news right as the James Show was starting that they got Eddie Garcia, the former Dallas guy, to be their new police chief. What's your thoughts on that?
It's a really interesting, James. So, I mean, first of all, it's a huge black mark for the city of Dallas. He left late last year to go follow the former Dallas city manager to Austin, take an assistant city manager job, and he's right back here, 30 miles away now in Fort Worth. And, and by the way, I really appreciate what you were saying earlier. And actually, to that point, we broke the story on July 15th, over a month ago, that Garcia would be named the chief on the day they named the finalists. That's how good our sourcing was on that particular story. So we're really proud of that.
Well, you're an inside guy. You know these people, right? Don't you know the what's his name?
I know a few people.
It's okay to admit it. Look, you're in the process. You're a former mayor of, what was it, Colleyville or something like that?
Yeah, I was the deputy mayor of Colleyville, correct.
All right. Well, let me also give you a little bit of credit here because you were right. Now, it feels weird that if we go back in time, this was a whole 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I'm about to play you an audio clip of Chris. This isn't going to be Chris Putnam now. This is Chris Putnam on the James Show, August 7th, making a prediction.
There is no fight here. These maps are going to pass, period. It doesn't matter whether they come back or not. It doesn't matter if anybody gets arrested. So these maps are getting done, period. Whether they come back or they don't come back.
You sound like 100% positive this is going to happen.
If I'm wrong, you can call me on it, but I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It's not a question.
Well, all right. So go ahead, take your victory lap. You knew 2 weeks ago when this whole thing started. You were the first one on the James Show to be that sure of yourself that this was all theater.
Well, for folks who understand this process and how this was going to go down, it was never a question. And that's where the whole process has been so disingenuous. It was pure political theater. And, and I don't But what I will tell you is, despite all these people I know, I don't have any particular inside information on whether or not there was literally collaboration, between Republicans in the House and the Democrats on this process, so that they could go, kick and scream and act like petulant children, outside the state for a while and use it as a fundraising vehicle. But that's what they did. And Republicans, by the same token, were, they were rattling cages with all this nonsense about arresting people and charging them with crimes. And it was always going to end up this way. And if the Democrats had not come back to the House, the DOJ would have forced it. I mean, it would have been decided in court ultimately, and the result would have been the same. And that's why I was so confident about it, because I know how the process works. I know how the law works, and there was zero unconstitutional about any of this process, and it was always going to end up this way from day one. And we just had to go, create a bunch of noise and conduct a bunch of political theater to get here.
Yeah, I feel like this was all theater, and I'm not amused by it. I'm a big fan of theater, not this kind. We're talking with Chris Putnam from Dallas Express, DallasExpress.com. Now, do you have any inside info on what's going on here in Dallas? They had hired the firm to look at places to build a new stadium, and now we can't find out what happened to that report. That was 3 months ago. We spent $75,000, and I just hate this whole circus too, because I don't think taxpayer dollars should be used for professional sports stadiums. So what do you know about this? Anything I don't?
Well, not specifically on the stadium issue, but what I can tell you from personal experience with the city is there's an insane lack of transparency. Another use case is there is a report that we know exists that, basically outlines Dallas's police pay problem. The Dallas police pay woefully less than many of the suburbs, and one of their senior officers actually testified, not legally testified, but was at a hearing the other day saying that their attrition rate is 40% of officers they recruit in the first 5 years end up matriculating to other cities that pay more. And we've been trying to get this data for weeks and weeks and weeks. They give us the runaround every time. We know.
Oh, you just dropped. Chris, you hit mute or something? Now, look, your website is Dallas Express, so we think, oh, he must be the guy that's all about Dallas. But you're actually Mr. Tarrant County here, Chris. What's it like? What do Fort Worth people and Dallas people, what's the biggest difference in your life experience?
Oh, wow. Kind of walked me into that one.
Yeah, I did.
But Dallas and Fort Worth are incredibly different, culturally and, in terms of business and politics. I will tell you that, I've been back in Dallas for about a year and a half now after spending most of my life, in Fort Worth and Tarrant County. And, I've really acclimated to, I think Dallas is really poised to be, perhaps one of the greatest financial centers in the world. And there's I've met so many interesting people over here. Of course, it's slightly bigger in terms of population, like 30%. So there's that to deal with. But culturally, it's different too. Dallas, is more like Atlanta in the sense that it's more cosmopolitan. There's a lot of, folks that are here from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. Fort Worth is very rooted. A lot of people never leave. And, it has absolutely retained its Western culture. Which which I think is fantastic. There's a lot of history that's been preserved there, and another thing that people don't know about Fort Worth is cultural. It's very rich as well. You have the Amon Carter Museum, which of course is the preeminent Western art museum in the country. The Kimball Modern Art Museum, one of the best in the country. The Stockyards, of course. There's just a lot going on in both places that's outstanding.
Well, what is Chris? You're one of the best people to ask this question. Why is there such a disparity in crime rates? Why is the crime rate in downtown Dallas? And you guys do a great job on Dallas Express of breaking these numbers down. For some months, it's 7 times higher. Some months, it's 11 times higher than the downtown area of Fort Worth.
I think there's a really easy answer to that question, and that is the municipal government of Fort Worth, the mayor, the city council, are incredibly supportive of the law enforcement community. Incredibly supportive. And in Dallas, they're not. It's that simple. And you have a Soros-backed DA here. A good 50% of the members of the Dallas City Council are very publicly defund the policers. They've made public statements to that effect in the past. And, the structural system of government in Dallas is flawed as well. It's, in 14, 15 single member districts, which mean everybody's fighting for their own fiefdom. Nobody's got the larger interests of the city at heart, and particularly around the public safety and crime issue. And as you noted earlier, I was an elected official in a Tarrant County community that happens to be always consistently one of the 3 safest in the entire state of Texas. And we did the same thing. We embraced and supported our law enforcement community. That doesn't mean you let things that law enforcement does that are mistakes or a bad apple or two go by. You deal with those things. But for the most part, public safety should be the absolute number one responsibility of your local government. It is not prioritized in Dallas. It's simply not. We see examples of it every single day. But take these charter amendments that passed last year, for example, that said the city's got to get to a requisite number of police officers per their own city charter, by the way, at the time.
Right.
By a certain date. They're in absolutely no hurry to do so, and they have a tremendous attrition problem because they don't pay their law enforcement community what other communities are paying them. I think the number we heard the other day was 40% of Dallas officers leave within the first 5 years to take higher paying jobs in other suburbs. Yep. And look what we just saw. I mean, we talked about it just a little bit ago before the break. Eddie Garcia leaves Dallas as police chief, a very well regarded police chief, by the way, and heads down to Austin, for 6 or 9 months or so to go work for the city manager down there, and then comes straight back here. And where is he? He's in Fort Worth because they appreciate him and they're going to give him what he needs to protect the community.
Well, what did he not get from Dallas?
Oh my gosh, officers for one.
Yeah, well, yeah, defund the police people is probably what he got. All right.
They don't have nearly enough officers. They're wildly short what a city of this size requires, and a city that has a crime problem, which they have only recently acknowledged. For years prior to this, as you pointed out, Dallas, we reported on this issue consistently while other media outlets and Dallas's own city government had their heads in the sand, pretending like there wasn't a problem. But people see it and feel it every single day. And the response times in Dallas are continuing to get worse, even after this focus on it. They're just not structurally set up in a way, and there's not enough people interested, not enough elected officials in particular interested, to adequately address the crime problem and give the police what they need, both in terms of pay and in terms of more resources, in terms of officers on the street.
Well, in the former Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia taking this job in Fort Worth, he's obviously taking a pay cut going from Dallas to Fort Worth. But even when he went from Dallas to Austin, now to Fort Worth, the job he had in Austin for the last 6-9 months is paying him more than he's going to get from Fort Worth. How do you explain him being willing to take a pay cut like that?
Well, he was an assistant city manager responsible for public safety in Austin. But I think, and I'm not going to speak for him, but my understanding is he's a police chief at heart, and Fort Worth is the best large city job for that kind of job, probably in the state, maybe in the country. Again, because it's supported by the law enforcement community, is supported by the larger community and by the elected officials in Fort Worth.
Well, let me clue everyone in on these numbers here. When he went to Austin, his salary to be, what was it, deputy city manager, something like that? $327,000 is the salary for a deputy city manager in Austin. If you want to be the police chief in Fort Worth, $275,000. Man, I should have gone into city management there, Chris. That's a pretty lucrative gig if you can get it.
Public safety is in general right now as well. But yes, state administrators and these large cities are making quite a bit of money.
Oh, no. I'll go into talk radio. It'll be fun. All right.
Yeah, try media.
Thank you very much. Chris, I got to run here. Sorry to cut you off, just out of time. But listen, go check out his website, DallasExpress.com. I was just reading from it during the last 2 segments here on all the hot news. It is your new newspaper of record for North Texas. Thanks again to
and
Chris
the White House as well. Did you see that today?
No, I didn't. Say that real quick.
Yeah, the White House has been sharing our stories as well now through their weekly e-blasts.
Wow. Forward one of those to me. I'd love to see it.
Will do.
All right.
Thank you, James. We appreciate you.
The James Show Podcast.